Welcome to the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host. Today is August the 5th, 2016. This is bonus content episode number 4, Training Camp Mania Update. Guys, I'm so happy to have you guys here with us on this special bonus content episode. Now, if you've never been around for a bonus content episode, here's pretty much how they work. Bonus content is set up as a place for us to be able to talk about stuff that may not necessarily fit in onto the main show, or it gives us a spot where we can just kind of jump in midweek in between the main episodes and talk about something that's kind of cropped up in Bucks news. Now, this particular bonus content episode we're calling the Training Camp Mania Update, which this is really a sequel to our last main show that we just put out about a week ago, which has been blowing up. Thank you guys so much for how you've been downloading and listening and sharing and tweeting back and sending me message on Facebook, and I've gotten a couple emails over this episode. Guys, thank you so much for how you're responding to that. I really appreciate it. And this is a sequel to that episode. Now, if you've not listened to episode number 6 yet, I really want to encourage you, pause this episode, go back, listen to episode number 6, Training Camp Mania, and then when you're done with that one, come back and join me here on this bonus content episode number 4, because this is going to be a Training Camp Mania update, and we're actually going to go point by point. In Training Camp Mania, the main show, we went through kind of what are the things that we as fans are looking for coming out of training camp. It's actually my personal opinions of the things that I think we should really be looking for as fans coming out of training camp. We're going to go through those point by point, and to do that, we've got a special guest who is calling in. It's Derek Fournier from over at What the Buck, from that podcast and that website over there, and he has just so graciously taken some time. He's been at training camp. He's actually physically been there, and he's been there for all the sessions except the last couple of 2 where he's had another event that he's needed to be a part of. And I just want to go ahead and let you guys know, something that we really strive for here at the Pewtercast is to make sure that everything always sounds good. You have a good audio quality. But for this particular episode, Derek and I were trying to work out timing, and the best way that we could do it was Derek actually called in on his phone. He was on his way to an event. He's driving. So what you're hearing is here's a guy who is I don't know if he was driving. He was in a car that was driving to a place. Maybe he was driving. I'm not sure. But so that's what's going on. There are a couple places where like the phone kind of bleeps out just a minute. And even if there's a little bit of lesser audio quality, that's just what's going on. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up as to that. So anyway, without much further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this bonus content episode number 4, Training Camp Mania Update. All right, Bucks fans. Well, I've got Derek Fournier on the line here from What the Buck. Derek, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, it's going great, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, man. Really glad. Hey, last time you were here, you said you wanted to come on and talk X's and O's. So here we are talking X's and O's. Training camp. You have been at training camp all except for the last little bit. And we had put out an episode here, episode 6, talking about Training Camp Mania, all the stuff that we've been looking for. So just thought maybe I'd get kind of a first-hand experience of somebody who's been there and see what they're seeing. Overall, what are you seeing in training camp? Just kind of overall thoughts with what's going on.
Well, one of the nice things that I've been able to do, because I've been at camp every year, more or less, and this being no exception, is seeing the differences between camps from coach to coach. And I think Cutter runs an interesting camp. It's a nice combination of educational, upbeat, as well as sort of intelligently spaced for timing, right? So you don't want to run these guys so ragged. You've got to have water breaks and interruptions, but they're not going to have a rash of injuries. And he uses those break periods more or less, though they're not sitting down or whatever. He's going walkthroughs. They're doing instructional work, breakouts with the position coaches. It's been a good camp to watch. It's been a good camp if you enjoy football, to see what's going on and developing within both the position levels all the way up to when they come together in the 7-on-7 or 11-on-11s.
That's since fun, man. I got to tell you, I am so jealous to have not been able to get down there and see them. And no, that's really great. Well, one of the things that I'd said that I was really looking at, kind of starting off with everything, was Jameis. We heard a lot about how he lost a lot of weight, and he's so dedicated to everything. How's Jameis looking in training camp so far for you, for somebody who's been there this year?
It's funny. Jameis has been an interesting athlete for me to follow, and I'm not a Florida State guy, so I wasn't already into the Jameis mania. But I did get a lot of sort of briefing from, Mark Cook, who's obviously very well versed on Jameis as a Florida State fan. Jameis is not a great player to watch in practice because Jameis doesn't usually look very good in practice. He tries a bunch of stuff. He's constantly working on his craft. And once you know that, you kind of relax. I remember the last season, I was, scared to death half the time because I'm like, God, this kid just does not look very good. But I've also coached long enough to know that you've got guys who play really well in practice, then can't play when the lights are on, and the inverse.
Right.
So I don't really lose any sleep. There's never any question about effort. He's first one in and out of every drill. He runs from station to station. His comportment has been something ridiculous, the way he's interacted with the fans and the media. The thing on ESPN the other day when they were there and I wasn't, and they tried to get the crowd chanting Jameis, James,
right.
And he said, no, Tampa Bay, we're one heart.
Right.
That you can't coach a kid to believe those things at that age. You either do or you don't. Right. And so as a Bucs fan, you got to be excited about what that's got coming in for training camp.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we talked about. We heard that a lot about Jameis, that he doesn't really he experiments with a lot of stuff. Is there anything that he's been doing on an experiment level that may not look really good in practice, but is just maybe kind of interesting to note?
Well, most of this stuff is hard until you understand it. You don't know what's going on. You just think he looks inaccurate because he looks inaccurate. And what that means is he's probably going a little deeper in his progressions. He's probably trying to, fit a ball in a window that he wouldn't normally do. He's trying to they work a lot on trajectory. So they do a lot of drills where they'll throw the ball over an underneath defender and then in front of an over defender. And sometimes they'll use different pads and things like that to make it a tougher throw. So you get the right arc on the ball so you can drop it into the bucket for a receiver coming into the seam or coming across the field. So they're tough throws to make. And instead of just doing those in drills, he'll do those actually in reps. And you can tell he's doing that. So, like I said, it can be very scary. I'm a huge proponent of people coming to training camp. I know there are the detractors out there that say you can't tell anything from people running around in underwear. I love to think that everyone's entitled to their opinion because they are, but in this case, their opinion's wrong. Coach was very clear about this at the professional level. One of the differences is these guys can get in great work whether they're in pads or not. And you have an opportunity for any fans out there like yourself. You said you're jealous of not being down here. This is a vacation opportunity for folks if you can do it, because you will never get this much concentrated access to the team at this level anywhere else. Right. So look at your calendar, take a good educated guess, figure it out. The Bucs are great about access. Get in there, get a chance to see the team, and then come down to Florida on the cheap because it's not that expensive to travel this time of year.
Right. Well, I might just have to try to make that a point here over the next week if I can. Maybe next year. Okay, moving on, and we'll talk about this I think a little bit because there's been a couple of different players, but specifically on the tight ends. It sounds like yesterday or maybe the day before, Cam Brate started working out with the first squad, the first team, and Cutter came out and said that he's our number one tight end right now. What are you seeing out there with that, and what are we making of that and ASJ and the 9 deep bench that we have in tight ends?
Well, and I've been sort of banging this drum for a while now. There's no surprise to anyone who's been watching the Bucs play football that Cam Brate is the best pass-catching tight end on the roster right now. The best overall tight end on the roster is Luke Stocker, which will make everyone groan and grumble. But the fact of the matter is there's no more well-rounded tight end on this roster. When Luke is healthy, he's the only one who can block. He catches the ball well. He runs good routes. He's very dependable. He's not spectacular in anything but the blocking, but that's a traditional tight end role. If the Bucs are going to implement a split end oriented tight end position, right, where the guy's not going to be necessarily lined up in a 3-point stance against the line, maybe split out, then we got a bunch of groceries out there. And the reality of this situation is, as much as I'd love to say ASJ is the one who's towards the top, he looks like it, but he isn't. He's not performing there. Cam Brate, Brandon Myers, both performing better than he is. To be honest, Danny Vitale, the draft choice, is incredibly athletic and provides an interesting look for the tight end position, the H-back position as well. So, you look at ASJ and there's all this potential. He's got this gigantic frame. He should be almost impossible to defend. And it's not that he's dragging backside out there, right? He's out there trying to work and he's trying to get it in. But these guys are just doing a great job.
That's great. Now with ASJ, of course he had that problem over the summer, where he got kicked out of camp and then had a little bit of fallout out of that. I've seen a lot of video and pictures where, he seems to really have, he's trying to ingratiate himself into the fans. Does that seem pretty genuine to you? Like, is that something maybe he's learned from here over the summer, or does this seem like more like a PR thing? What are you thinking about that as you see that?
I don't know, man. You know me. I don't normally get into the TMZ side of this stuff. I don't know ASJ as a human. I do know someone who does know him as a human, says he's a pretty good egg. I don't really care. If he's doing it for PR, it's the right thing to do anyway, right? He went off half-cocked. It was stupid. His PR guy should have went upside his head with it and said, listen, you're a dummy. You've got to make sure that you're not acting like an unprofessional fool for your job as well as for the fans, because both of these things matter to you. This is talking to your pocketbook, right? This is going right to your line, because if you don't perform, you will not get a second contract. And I don't care how tall you are or how broad you are or what you did in college, you're just another out-of-work NFL player without that contract. So, I think he's doing the right things, but you know what would be better? Catch a lot of passes, get open, make splash plays, right?
Yeah.
That's how you win.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, either way, whether he's doing it for the right reasons or not, it's the right thing to do. And that's where we go. Hey, let's move over to the O-line real quick. The big thing that's always been bugging, I think, a lot of people has been the battle at center between Smith and Hawley. What do you make of this whole thing between those two guys?
Iron sharpens iron. Evan Smith is a tested pro. We thought coming into camp that they were going to have him set up as a swing guy from guard to guard. It's good to have depth at center. I think they were a better team with Joe Hawley in at center, even though I think Evan Smith may have more natural ability. I think that the chemistry of that line is better with Hawley in there. But to be honest, I don't like the line with either of them gone, right? Even if Evan's not on the field, I like Evan being there because of what he does, with the other players, what he sees, his experience. Cutter went into camp saying they were going to alternate 1 reps for him. There was no surprise or shock when that was going on, right? Though it was put forth as that by a couple of folks. But my opinion is when the season starts, it's going to be Joe Hawley unless there's some sort of an injury issue that surprises me. I just think he's the better center for us.
Well, I certainly hope that's the case. I've been saying since I think the draft that if Joe Hawley isn't our starting center come season, I might throw a microphone through a window. So I'd rather not have to do that.
What's funny is, Evan had a rough run for a while back when he went by a different name, like John Cougar Mellencamp, but he's looked fairly good in camp. There have been some center quarterback exchange issues, and it's hard to figure out who the fault lies with there.
Right.
But as much as I'm a Hawley guy, and I'm an unashamedly Hawley guy, I'm a Hawley family guy, to be honest. I like that whole crew.
Right.
It's good to have depth, man. That's that position where you've got to have depth, because if something goes wrong, if he tweaks something, you got to have someone come in there and snap the football. And when you look at what's going on the left guard position, right, with the retiring of Logan Mankins, Kevin Panfield hasn't looked great. Sweezy hasn't been able to get snaps. You got to have enough meat in there to be able to protect Jameis and open up some holes for Doug Martin.
Right. Now, yeah, and I'm like you. I certainly I don't have any problems with Smith. I like the chemistry that Hawley and Jameis were able to develop over the last year, and I don't want to mess with that. So let's move over to Doug Martin. I think the big question on a lot of people's minds is what Doug Martin is going to show up. Is he healthy? Does he have a good offensive line in front of him? What are we seeing out of Doug Martin in camp so far this year? Does he look like the Doug Martin of 2015, or is he just kind of what are we seeing so far from him?
Well, I want to recouch the question a little bit to avoid some of the things I think some other outlets are doing. There's really only one Doug Martin unless he's injured, and then there's an injured version of Doug Martin. Those are the only two we've ever seen. When Doug Martin's not injured, he plays at like a top 5 running back in the league, right? Top 5, top 7. Even if you hate the Bucs, you got to give him that kind of credit. Hell, he was top 2 last year by stats. When he's healthy, that's what he is. He looks just like that in training camp. So barring an injury, that's what he's going to do. What's exciting for us, I think, from a running back perspective, is Charles Sims emerged to be the player that they thought he was when they drafted him. You've got depth in the form of the rest of the guys back there that can provide us some additional flexibility in the backfield. You've got an interesting battle between Butler and Storm Johnson brewing, right? So it's not like we don't have a ton of talent back there. So it's going to be interesting when you got a quarterback who threw for around 4,000 yards with the number of drops and running for his life for the first half of the season that Jameis did. You got a really potentially potent offense, and that's without even talking about how much more you can get out of Charles Sims. Now that people have to be legit afraid of what Doug Martin can do.
Right.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're still here.
I'm coming through the mountains up here. I thought I might have lost you.
Yeah, it dinked out on me for just a minute, but I think we got the majority of what you were saying there. So
they're not really mountains. I'm from Florida. It's really just a very large hill.
It's a large
with
hill.
Trees on it.
Yeah.
Florida, that would be mountains. So.
Oh, man, that's funny. All right, so defensive tackles. I know we talked a little bit about there's some depth problem there, but we've got Noah Spence. He's on, and we got who's that? Clinton McDonald back, and people like that. So how are we looking on the lineup there on our defense?
The defensive line is looking good. They're looking violent, which is good. I want fans to get in love with Clinton McDonald, right? Clinton McDonald, when we got him, he's a leader. The guy knows how to play the game. He's going to be a nice, I would say he's a compliment to Gerald McCoy on that line, but to be honest, he's He's a leader in a totally different way, right? They said, I saw a note the other day where he called the defense into a huddle,
Right.
and the line, I think was from Brown, was when Clinton speaks, everyone listens. And that carries a lot of weight in a defensive huddle, right? There are guys who have done it, and there are guys who think they can do it. He's a guy who's done it. Right. And so when you look at the way this defensive line seems to be coming together, you got the more prototypical or traditional setups where you got the Will Golstons of the world and the Howard Jones of the world, these guys that are normal size, and that's what a 4-3 line is made out of with the Gerald McCoy and the Akeem Spences in the middle. Then you've got a guy like Noah Spence and Jack Smith who come in, and they're more like those tweener hybrid guys, the Von Miller, Khalil Mack, 4-3 outside linebacker, sort of lean, fast, speed, edge rush guys. And what we're doing with those guys, as we kind of discussed last year with Jack until he got injured, when you have that flexibility on the edge, you can go into a zone dog or a zone blitz, drop those guys in coverage. Hell, I saw Howard Jones covering a tight end 15 yards down the field the other day in training camp. And people are like, well, why would you have him covering? If that play fails, it causes everyone on their couch to scream and become a defensive coordinator and say, why would you ever have Howard Jones covering a tight end 15 yards down the field? Well, it's because the play didn't work, Sherlock.
Right.
A disguised blitz. If he drops back into coverage, it's because you want a mismatch on the line, right? And when that mismatch occurs, if the play works, that quarterback gets busted in the chops. That's something we did extensively during Monty Kiffin's tenure here.
Right.
Right? So it is something that's very exciting for me because when you got a guy like that, if you put him out in, no, we're not implementing a wide 9 like the Dolphins do, right? But if you put him out in a wide stance, that tackle's first step has got to be deep, not parallel to the line. And if you already know where his step is and you're able to get back, his first step is so deep that inside gap is open. And that's just good coaching, and it's good scheming. And with the talent we have, it should be good execution.
Yeah, and hopefully Clint McDonald doesn't get injured this year and have to sit out the season like it happened last year. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can't injuries. He's just got to play the way he plays. But I get very excited when I see the way he's emerging as a more vocal leader.
Right. Yeah, and I loved reading that same story you just referenced where he called everybody over and said, "I don't like what's going on." So he came in a little bit of a veteran. Let's talk about a couple other veterans we brought in on the defensive side of the ball. Robert Ayers and Daryl Smith. Robert Ayers especially made a lot of noise during OTAs. What do you see about those two guys and what they're bringing to the table?
Robert Ayers is one of those hard hat guys. He's going to get in there, and he is a nice middle of the road guy. He's not so small in the pants that you're going to lose anything against the run game, but he's aggressive to get upfield. I think he's going to add a lot. He's almost to me a thinner version of Will Golston. He just seems to always be able to push the guy back who's guarding him. Will Golston, I hate to keep blowing that horn, but this guy, he's been phenomenal in camp, and every time he got a chance to play last year when he didn't commit a stupid penalty, he was phenomenal. So you got to get those stupid penalties out of there. But you got a couple of guys in both of them that can be pretty spectacular. And with Daryl Smith, you look at the linebacking core with Levante Anquan and Daryl Smith, and you got a heck of an athletic set of players back there. And this is not Daryl's first barbecue. So being able to help Quan and Levante continue to round out and advance their knowledge of the game, you also have a feeling that Daryl's going to be where he's supposed to be. Right, which is also pretty important when you look at that, because you got a couple of guys in Levante and Quan that are so athletic. Every once in a while, it seems like this defense under Smitty is going to let them take some risks. You need someone who's back there when they take those risks.
Right. Yeah, and definitely him being the veteran helps that in every situation. Let's take a step back to the cornerbacks. I read the other day, Vernon Hargraves, our first-round draft pick this year, has been practicing with the first team. How's that whole thing looking with Brent Grimes coming in, brand new, and what's this really mean for Jonathan Banks and Altron Werner?
Well, it's interesting because when I was there, that was not the case. He was playing mostly with the twos. Every once in a while, he'd come up to the ones if they went to nickel. But I don't know that matters so much with regards to the depth right now. That's like everyone getting all fired up about Adam Humphries. I think that was an obvious choice. Right. But these positions, these stack rank really only matters until we get under lights and playing another team, and it has to be proven out to be true. Hargraves is so athletic, and we've invested enough in him that you want him on the field. You don't buy a new car to put it in the garage unless you're buying a McLaren, and then you're too rich to have cars anymore. But you want Hargraves out there playing. He is incredibly athletic. He's got to get the scheme into his head. He's got to make sure he's in the right place at the right time. Brent Grimes has played very well in camp, man. I mean, he has been spectacular is probably too strong. He's been very, very good. So is Altron Werner. Jonathan Banks, from what I have seen, has not been quite as good, and that's a bit of an issue. I actually like Jonathan physically. I think he should be a very good corner, but should be and is are two different things. Right. So we got to see if he can actually turn that into true performance. And it's going to be tough because Hargraves is pushing him.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see because it seems like that whole place has been upgraded here over the offseason. Now, you and I had a little bit of a Twitter exchange earlier this year where I talked about, or earlier this week, where I'd asked where our biggest depth was or what our biggest question mark on the team was. It our defensive tackles or was it our safeties? And you responded exactly the way I think, which is our safeties. What have you been seeing back there? And what about specifically Ryan Smith, who, Light said when he drafted him that he wanted to use him as a safety? What are you seeing out of that spot back there?
I haven't seen enough out of Ryan Smith to be excited or unhappy. What I have seen out of the safety position is I feel like we're just middle of the road, right? Yeah. It's Keith Tandy, who I'd love to love, but I also seem to always get annoyed with. He's in the right place at the right time, but half the time last year I remember going, why is he not where he should be? Chris Conte, as long as he's healthy, plays very good. People can make fun of him all they want, but when he's in there and healthy, the guy plays good football. And then you got McDougal and Major Wright, who, with the exception of going across Cam Braid or Brandon Myers' head, I can never remember which one he punched in the chops the other day.
Right.
It just feels middle of the road. And if our cornerbacks are better, then that will cover up the deficiency at safety, which I think our cornerbacks are going to be better. But I don't like looking at that and going, well, our last line of defense is meh. Right? I would not be surprised if we don't see Ryan Smith emergence, if we don't see the coaching staff getting just super excited about what's going on with McDougal and Conte. I wouldn't be surprised to see a move made to bring in some more depth back there, because they really should be a group that thrives. Because if these corners can be aggressive, you should see a lot more tip passes, a lot more opportunities for the safeties to do some good work.
Right. And let's not forget, it's a former Buccaneer safety that's going into the Ring of Honor. So it's a very important position. And I think that's a great point you make, that if we don't see some more improvement, that we really could see somebody brought in to help that unit out, especially. Derek, I've just got two more spots I wanted to look at real quick. One has been the return game. That to me has been a big question mark. I know Cutter named Kenny Bell, Ryan Smith, and Charles Sims the other day, and it sounded like there was maybe Shepard was going to be taking some reps back there. Have you seen anything when they've been drilling there on special teams?
No, they've been rotating through a bunch of different talent back there. I think what you end up with in special teams is this sort of challenge, right? Because you don't want to put someone back there who's so valuable to you in four other positions that if he gets hurt, you're screwed, right? And Russell Shepard's been the special teams ace. The guy still manages to get open seemingly, 50% of the time when he's out as a receiver. I still don't know how he does it, but he gets open, and when he's open, he catches the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Sims, do I want to put him back there and risk a number two running back who's actually like a 1.5 running back?
No.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Kenny Bell, he's so explosive. I think Kenny Bell can do work back there as long as he can get his hands on the football. I think we've got some opportunities, but again, it's one of those things where I really just want to get to average.
Right.
Secure. I don't want to be Tim Brown, right? Catch the ball and a fair catch. That's the end of your return game. But I want to make sure you field it first, advance it second, don't fumble the ball, right? That becomes the rule for me. Because I don't think we have anyone who's going to be spectacular. I think you got to find that lightning in a bottle every once in a while. The Dante Halls, the Devin Hesters of the world. Hell, we had Peanut Smith for a while, who no one knew could do anything. He was phenomenal until he got his bell rung so bad he couldn't play the game anymore.
Right. Well, yeah, and that right there is exactly why I said, Charles Sims was the big head scratcher to me. I don't want to risk injury to him. When we've got some other guys we can put back there. All right, so one more guy I wanted to look at, and this one is really just kind of a does it happen or does it not? But Roberto Aguayo, we brought him in, went up to the second round to get him. Have you gotten to see any of his kicks? How's he looking? I know he missed one the other day, but he nailed a 58-yarder earlier. I think, was it today or maybe yesterday? What have you seen from him? I think it was
yesterday. He kicks the ball like a kicker. I hate to say I'm not a kicker evaluator. The kid had an amazingly prolific college career. I think that kickers are largely garden variety, and it doesn't matter until you see them kick under pressure. Again, like Jameis, from a quarterback perspective, I've known kickers. Hell, Kyle Brinson could kick the ball from 55 yards out 7 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, right? But you got him in a game, and he's going to in the 38-yard kick, and that's not what you need. So what I think they reached up to get Aguayo for is they believe that when the lights are on, when he has to perform, this is a kid who shows he can perform. And so we'll find that out when we get into a game situation, and we no longer sit there when we're at the 30 and we go, do we really want to bring him in? Right? Do we really want to risk this kick 48 yards? 48 yards has to be automatic, because then your play caller doesn't have to be careful. He's not afraid to call a deep drop, right, and throw the ball away or worry about losing a couple yards, because we can still kick a 55 and in field goal.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, that certainly, that certainly comes to the thing. And, one of the things we talk about is his looming first missed kick,
Oh, absolutely.
and what's going to happen, it's just going to raise the flag for everybody who, was like, oh, we should never have taken him in the second round. That was crazy. And, he's going to eventually miss a kick, but
he will do it. Right.
Yeah.
It's absolutely correct. He's going to miss kicks because kickers miss. Right. And when they miss, it could be one of a billion different things that triggers the miss.
Right.
And fans are going to be mad about it because they feel we stretched. And if he makes a winning kick, that'll be great, and it'll last for 4.5 minutes until he comes to kick a second kick, and then they'll hate him again if he misses it. Hero or GOAT, man. Kickers have got to have the toughest soul, I think, of any football player, because every time they come out, if they miss, everyone considers them an ultimate failure.
Right.
It wasn't just they missed that kick.
Right. And then when they make it, it's just like, well, he should have done that anyway. That was easy.
That's his job. Right. That's his job.
Right. Well,
but hey, that's the upside of not getting hit all the time, I guess.
Well, there you go. You have to have the smallest pads on the team. So now one name that I said that I'm not particularly worried about this year because I think he's going to work everything out has been Mike Evans. What have you seen out of Mike Evans? Any thoughts on him?
His camp has been solid, I think. I mean, people got all fired up about him dropping the first pass. Mike's out there putting in work. I am a Mike guy. I like Mike. I was very frustrated with the way he had his dropsies last year, but to a lot of other people's points, he also caught a lot of passes. But somewhat like what we just said about kickers, the job description starts out with catch the ball.
Right.
Right. And they're contested catches. And yeah, sometimes you can give him a little bit of a pass, but if he's coming in a slant and the ball hits him in the hands, you catch the ball.
Right.
Right. When you're the one or the two receiver on your team, that's what you do. But Vincent has had some drops too. He's working hard. I think he understands it. Coach Cutter made a comment in his post-practice sort of brief pressure he does with the media out there that, the whole staff is listening to the media talk about it. Everyone understands the scrutiny that Mike's under. And Mike will be just like you just said with Aguayo. First pass he drops, you're going to hear the groan, right?
Right.
And you just hope there's so much of this game that people don't realize is mental.
Right.
We talk about it with kickers a lot. Receivers are the same way, and I remember Michael Clayton vividly. This is a guy who couldn't drop anything in practice. Nothing. This guy was a machine his last couple of years with Tampa in practice, but when the lights came on, he just couldn't get it done. It was a mental thing because you start thinking, it's quicksand, right?
Right.
You start thinking you're going to drop the ball before it hits you in the hand, and then you're overthinking it. Your hands are in the wrong position, and then everything falls apart. So I don't think that's what's going to happen to Mike. Mike's got a lot of confidence. He understands the game. I'm excited about him. Physically, he can be just absolutely dominant, and that's what we need as Bucs fans, to see him go out there and impose his will the way a Julio Jones does, because he is certainly capable of that physical perspective.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things that we know and we love about Mike Evans, and I personally just can't wait to see him in game this year. Well, Derek, that does it for all the questions I have. Do you have any kind of final thoughts wrapping up? Anything from training camp that you've seen or anything?
I'm looking very forward to seeing a game against other players, right? I mean, the team has a lot of groceries, is what I keep saying. It's the first time in a long time I've been like, well, we don't really need to go get a lot here. We don't need to get a lot here. I'd like a safety, right? When I look at my wish list, it's like if it were a Christmas list, I'd like a better safety position. Other than that, I want to see us hit. I want to see this defense really get after another team. I want to see our offensive line impose their will and let Doug Martin run the ball. And I want to see what a second-year Jameis with more confidence, more understanding of the system can do. Because we've never had a prolific offense in Tampa.
Right.
And we had one last year. It just got covered up by the fact that we didn't have a tremendously successful team.
Right.
I think we're on the cusp of having that. And to be honest, even in the Super Bowl days, right?
Oh yeah.
We didn't have that. So it'll be fun as a Bucs fan to be able to celebrate a prolific offense and then have a defense that can be aggressive and try and get that sort of double win, right? Get those turnovers, let that offense go score some more points.
Right. And that's exactly what we want out of our football team. We want our offense getting out there and just racking up points on the board and having the defense get on there and get off the field so the offense can go back and do it again. Well, Derek, thanks so much for taking some time and kind of letting us know about what you're seeing there, being there firsthand for training camp update. And who knows, maybe next week or maybe next year we'll actually get to sit next to each other and go eat some wings at Hooters afterwards.
Well, it sounds like fun, man. If you get a chance, come down there. We always have a good time at camp. You can hang out with all of us in the stands and watch this stuff and go around and have a good time. And for the training camp updates, if anyone's not following us on Twitter, I try and do those after every camp session. So, on What the Buck, we try and get those out within 15 or 20 minutes after the end of the session.
Yeah, you and Mark Cook have just been really. You guys have had some great updates coming out of training camp. I've been following them myself, and everybody, you should absolutely do that. Follow these guys on Twitter at What the Buck. Get them on Facebook at What the Buck. WhatTheBuck.net is the website. You guys can check out everything that they've got going on over there. Derek, thanks so much for your time, man.
Pleasure, man. Thanks, Brent.
All right, you have a great one now. All right, Pewtercast fans, well, that's going to do it for this bonus content, episode number 4. I'd like to give a special thank you to Derek from over at What the Buck. I really appreciate his time and him really just kind of squeezing us into a very busy schedule of some things he's got going on. Well, hey guys, I'd love to know what you thought of this bonus content episode. So please feel free, drop me an email over at thepewtercast@gmail.com. And hey, listen, if your email is good or at least mildly entertaining, we'll probably wind up reading it here on air in a feedback session. So make sure you do that. Or if email is kind of a little bit of an old school way for you, you can jump over to Twitter, and we're there at the Pewtercast, or you can go over to facebook.com/the Pewtercast, and you can comment there. You can leave a comment on the link for the actual page for where this podcast is being hosted, or even better than all of that, you can go over to iTunes for us and leave us a review. Hey, listen, remember we've said if we hit 25 iTunes reviews by the end of the preseason, I've moved that date just a little bit, then that's going to trigger a new Instant Take show. So you guys want to make sure you get over there and do that. We're still a few ways away. So I think we can still get there, though. I think there's plenty of time. There's going to be lots of new fans jumping in to join us here at the Pewtercast. And hey, listen, honestly, there is more than enough of you that are already listening. We could blow that number out of the water, but 25 is the number that we've set up for doing that. And yeah, we just really hope you guys go over there and do that. Subscribe, like us, bump us up in the ratings, and that really just helps other Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans as they're starting to get into the season, and they're now looking for new Buccaneers content. That'll help them find us and join you guys, and we can all be this one big party. And one last reminder before we get out of here, we have our very first annual fantasy football league that's going to be happening right here with the Pewtercast. And hey, listen, I've only got a couple of spots left. You guys have responded pretty great to that. I've only got a handful of spots left. So if you'd like to be a part of the first annual Pewtercast Fantasy Football League, all you got to do is just shoot me an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com, put fantasy football in the line, and I'll send that over to you. It's $10 to be a part of the league. And what'll happen is the winner of the whole league is going to split the pot 50-50 between them and over to a charity. So, all right, guys, well, that's going to wrap up this bonus content, episode number 4, Training Camp Mania. You guys have a great week, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Go Bucks.